Hey you guys, welcome back to another tutorial with Rachel's Studio, and I am Rachel, and I did a wave tutorial for my Patreon students, and mostly what I do in my Patreon include dogs and cats and some horses, but everyone wanted to see the splash technique that I told them about that I like to use for waves. And basically the gist of it is I use paper towel to lay around the wave that I want to splash in, and then I can splash with abandon and not even worry about. So today what we're going to do is paint this wave painting. I'm going to show you everything I did. I'm going to tell you my colors and some special little secrets that made this wave extra special. So let's get started and I'll tell you all about it. I kept a piece of paper, just cheap printer paper, by my painting so that I could practice little splash techniques, because it's been a while since I've done any splashing. So it depends on what kind of splash you want. You can use different tools to get different splashes, and there are a zillion different ways that you can get different sprays and spritzes and splashes. And one of the things that I used in this painting was a toothbrush, and I just ran my finger along the bristles, and that got a fine little spray. And then I used my big 3/4 inch oval silver black velvet brush, which I put a lot of water in, and that got big drops. So here I am practicing with my masking, and I'm gonna spray in some masking with my little toothbrush. And as you can see, I put paper towel everywhere where I do not want white spray, which is pretty much everywhere except for where you see the tops of white waves. And then I painted along the very top edges of the whitest parts of the waves with masking. You don't have to do that. And if you work in a larger format than I did, then you don't necessarily have to probably use masking. And I would recommend, I think especially if you're new to splashing, that you work in a larger format than this painting that I did. I think it was a little too small. Here I'm showing you the two paint colors I'm trying out. Moon Glow and Green Appetite. They're both granulating paints, and I went on the forums that I follow and looked up to see what were artist favorites, and the two colors that kept coming up over and over again were Moon Glow by Daniel Smith and also Daniel Smith's Green Appetite. So I do paint dot samples for my Patreons who choose the $13 tier. I mail them out samples, and I'm always looking for interesting new paints to try with them just for fun. So that's how I found these paint dots that are paint colors that I'm going to use for my paint dots this quarter. And they ended up being perfect for this painting because there's a lot of green and purple in this painting, and I thought the granulation would look really pretty in the waves. As it turns out, I don't feel like they granulated much. And then I did another painting. In fact, I have it right here that I did with Moon Glow and Lamp Black, and I do feel like it granulated out a lot. But anyway, I don't want to get too far off track like I usually do. The first thing that I do with waves, especially the more complicated waves, is I kind of draw like a map. I paint in a map to put in the main, it's like almost painting in a skeleton of the waves, so I don't get lost in the painting. And I ended up not getting lost in this painting as badly as I thought I would, so it wasn't bad. But here I'm painting just along the tops of the waves where that dark green, the darkest green waves are, and I'm just kind of blocking things in so I can remember where I am in the painting. And before I started this painting, I'm a little rusty on waves. It's been a while. So I looked up in my books. I have several books that I use for reference, and I just read the chapter by Charles Reed on how he does seascapes. And he was saying that he put in the dark parts first. So I was like, well, if it works for Charles Reed, it should work for me. So you will notice that In this painting, I put in the darks first, and I often do that, and I talk about that all the time when I'm painting cats and dogs, because what I love to do, especially on Arches cold press 140 pound, which this is, you can go in after that is totally dry and paint over it, and it will soften those dark passages and make them a little bit more softer and pleasing. So I don't mind putting in dark passages first at all. All right, now I'm going in and I'm splashing in some moon glow, the fun part, the highlights. So you see, wherever there's purple waves, that's where I splashed the moon glow in, and I thought it came out so great. I love the effect. It did exactly what I wanted, and you can see how much paper towel and just whatever paper I had laying around, I just laid it out around the whole painting where I did not want splashes, and I basically just wanted splashes in the white and the purple parts of the waves. And if you look at the reference photo, you'll see what I mean. There is definitely a green smooth part to the wave, and then there's the foamy, splashy white and purple and blue areas, and those purplish blue white areas are where I did all my splashing. Obviously the green parts of the waves are smoother looking, so they don't get splashes. So that's how I did that. And then for the pier behind the waves, I kept those colors in the pier grayed down. So I used a lot of just junk paint off my palette, which I do all the time. And I didn't want them to be too dark and too contrasting because I didn't want them to be the main focus. So they still came out really dark, but what I would do is I would paint a line and then I'd drop in a little bit of water to lighten the line, and then I'd go back in a few spots, put in some indigo to get some really dark spots. So even though in the reference photo they're just the same color, same value all the way across, I kind of added interest to mine just to give it more artistic interest. And for the waves, again, I used mostly green apatite. I also used Quin Gold. I used a hint of Naphthol red in that one little spot where there's a little bit of red shimmering through because the sun's going down. I used Naphthol. And then I also used, in the purplish blue waves, I used mostly Moon Glow, but then I would go in after I sprinkled everything in, I'd go in and sprinkle clear water on top of that to make some of those dots merge together. And then after that, I would go in with some tea consistency cobalt blue along the bottoms of the waves, which were kind of a straight line, and paint in those larger shapes with cobalt blue, just to kind of join parts of the splashes together and give it some body and some just to bring out the shapes of the waves, because even in the white splashy areas there's shadows, and I wanted to get those values correct. And remember, the values are way more important than the colors, so you probably won't have Moon Glow to play with. Use ultramarine blue and Naphthol red to make your purple, or Windsor violet, whatever. You probably won't have green apatite, so use sap green would work, or you can mix ultramarine blue with aureolin or a zillion other combinations. It really is not as important as getting your values right, especially in a painting like this with the waves, because the waves would look really flat and confusing if you didn't get all the values you want, the lights, the darks, and the mediums. And then at the end, I went in and I splashed in some Iridori, Holbein Iridori Antique Turquoise, which they're discontinuing, and I sent those out as paint dots too. I have a few more paint dots of those if you want to try it, but it's almost like, what's the point of trying that color, because I think they're discontinuing it. So I was sad. But at the very end, I put tea consistency antique turquoise in my brush and splashed it in the foreground to kind of give the painting a little bit more depth. So it's almost like there's a big wave crashing right in front of you, and then that gives you a sense of depth, because then behind that are the smaller waves and the smaller splashes further out in the ocean. So anyway, I hope you like this painting. This was a reference photo that I took in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina in 2005, for those of you that might be interested. So if you enjoyed this video, please give me a like, subscribe to my channel, and leave me a comment. And even if you don't support me on Patreon, then you can really help this channel by supporting me through a like, a comment, and subscribing to me. And I upload new content every week. And if you are interested in seeing this in all its beautiful nitty-grittiness, you can join my Patreon. This tutorial is available now. It's a 2-hour tutorial, I believe. So you get in a lot more detail and you learn a lot about how exactly I created this painting. And I would love to see you there. I have several other full-length tutorials, at least 13, but maybe 16. I'm not sure, I lose count. But once you join, you get instant access to all those videos too. So I would love to see you there, and I always appreciate the support, because the more support I get here on my YouTube and my Patreon, the more I can paint just for tutorials instead of doing commissions, which may or may not be very pretty. So thank you again so much. I appreciate all of you guys, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. Bye.